Hello, and welcome to Classic Country Backstories. I'm Colleen Gallagher. Johnny Paycheck didn't just sing about hard living. He lived it. He was one of the most raw, defiant voices in country music history, a man whose life was as outlaw as the songs he sang. Best known for the working class anthem, Take This Job and Shove It, Johnny Paycheck rose from the honky-tonks to the top of the charts, playing alongside legends like George Jones before becoming a star in his own right. But his career was marked by more than hits. It was shaped by addiction, controversy, prison time, and a constant fight for redemption. In this episode, we're diving into the life and career of Johnny Paycheck, the music, the madness, the moments that made him a legend, and the demons that nearly destroyed him. This is the story of a man who sang the truth, no matter the cost.
Nashville, Tennessee, country music capital of the world, home of the Grand Ole Opry, where singers and dreamers come seeking stardom. Join me as we learn about the lives and careers of those who built this town on Classic Country Backstories.
Born Donald Gene Lytle, May 31st, 1938, in Greenfield, Ohio. His parents were Lester and Chloe Lytle. He had one brother, Jeff. He began playing guitar at the age of 6 after his mother bought him one. By the age of 9, Lytle was already playing in talent contests. He billed himself as the Ohio Kid. He dropped out of school and left home as a teenager and played bar gigs until he decided to enlist in the U.S. Navy. Later on in life, his run-ins with the law were well known. However, my research taught me that this pattern began when he was quite young. While in the service, there was an instance where Donnie was court-martialed and charged with hitting a superior officer. He served 2 years in military prison. After his release from the Navy, he roamed around for a while until finally settling in Nashville. Fortunately, his talents were noticed. He was signed by Buddy Killen to a songwriting deal with Tree Publishing Company, now known as Sony ATV Music Publishing. He also landed a record deal with Decca Records. Using the name Donnie Young, he released 4 singles, but they didn't make it to the charts. Then he released 2 singles for Mercury Records in 1962, which also failed to gain any traction. When his recordings failed to chart, he went to work for some of the biggest country entertainers, including Porter Wagoner, Ray Price, and Farron Young. From 1962 to 1966, he was the bass guitarist and frontman for George Jones and the Jones Boys. Paycheck even recorded with Jones, singing the high harmonies on songs like The Race Is On and Love Bug. He even co-wrote Jones' hit song, Once You Had the Best. The drug and alcohol-related relationship between Jones and Paycheck is one of legend. If you want to hear some of those stories, go back and check out our Classic Country Backstories episode called George Jones, The Grand Tour. In 1966, he legally changed his name to Johnny Paycheck and hooked up with producer Aubrey Mayhew. He released A11 and Heartbreak, Tennessee, which took him to the charts on the Hilltop label. Paycheck and Mayhew formed Little Darlin' Records in 1966. During the next 3 years, his songs were consistently making it into the charts. His first top 10 was The Lovin' Machine, released in 1966. He quickly followed up the song with Motel Time Again and Jukebox Charlie. In 1966, Tammy Wynette took her first single, Apartment No. 9, to the Billboard charts, which was co-written by Johnny Paycheck, Fuzzy Owen, and Bobby Austin. The song was named the Academy of Country Music's Song of the Year. Ray Price also had a top 5 with Paycheck's Touch My Heart the same year. By the end of the 1960s, Johnny Paycheck and Aubrey Mayhew were deeply in debt, and the record company folded. As a result of his bad fortune, Paycheck hit the bottom for the first time, drinking heavily and living on the streets of Los Angeles. However, thanks to the hard work of CBS executive Nick Hunter, Johnny was tracked down and Billy Sherrill signed him to a deal with Epic Records. By the end of 1971, Paycheck was back at the top of the charts with She's All I Got, which peaked at number 2. This tune also reached the lower registers of the pop charts and was even nominated for a Grammy Award. He followed up in the spring of 1972 with Someone to Give My Love To, which climbed to the number 2 position on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, as well as the Canadian chart, and became a major crossover hit. It remained on the Billboard charts for 19 weeks. Even though things were looking up for Paycheck, he once again found trouble when he was arrested and convicted of check forgery charges. This time the judge was lenient and gave him a suspended sentence. For the next 5 years, Johnny Paycheck continued to show up at various places on the country charts. He had a duet with Jody Miller with Let's All Go Down to the River, which made it to the number 13 position. Billy Sherrill worked to smooth out Paycheck's rough image and make him a ballad singer. During this time, he turned out singles like Love is a Good Thing, Something About You I Love, Mr. Lovemaker, Song and Dance Man, My Part of Forever, Keep on Lovin' Me, For a Minute There, and All American Man, which all held respectable places on the charts. After the outlaw movement, Billy Sherrill decided that his image should change to fit the era in country music, possibly trying to cash in on Paycheck's rough and rowdy past, pun intended. The change apparently worked. He began another good run with 1977's Slide Off Your Satin Sheets and I'm the Only Hell My Mama Ever Raised, which were both top 10s. His only number 1 came when Take This Job and Shove It entered the charts in June of 1977. It was written by David Allan Coe and was originally intended to be a song about a bad relationship. It ended up being adopted as a battle cry for those who were dissatisfied with their jobs. Hollywood was quick to pick up the song's popularity and created a movie with the same name, which starred Robert Hayes of Airplane fame. Paycheck's next single, Georgia in a Jug, did not fare too well, but he came back with another top 10 single, Friend, Lover, Wife. During the early 1980s, Johnny Paycheck released a string of singles, but none of them were really able to have much of the same impact that many of his earlier releases had. Paycheck and Merle Haggard released I Can't Hold Myself in Line as a duet, and the tour ensued. However, it did little to jumpstart his career again. The pair released covers of Chuck Berry's Maybelline and Roy Hamilton's You Can Have Her that did slightly better. Both singles made it to the top 20. In 1981, he began to have more legal problems. During this time, he missed out on recording Unwound, which ended up being recorded by George Strait. He was sued for slander by a flight attendant after a mid-air altercation. He also endured a paternity suit and had tax problems. He was forced to file bankruptcy. Also in 1981, Paycheck was arrested and charged with having improper relations with a 12-year-old girl in Wyoming. Band members said that he had several allegations because of his celebrity status. In 1982, he pled no contest to the charges so that he could continue to tour and not go to trial. The prosecution's witnesses were reluctant to testify. He pleaded the charge down to a misdemeanor and received a $1,000 fine. A $3 million civil suit was filed, but it never went to court. Following the latest legal issues, he was dropped by Epic Records in 1982. After his release from Epic, he signed with AMI Records and recorded several minor hits between 1984 and 1985. In Paycheck's home of Canfield, Ohio, he was a polarizing figure. There were many people who loved and supported him unconditionally. On the other hand, there were many who criticized him for his bad choices and run-ins with the law. Roger Ross, longtime editor of the Greenfield Daily Times, was a longtime friend who said that Johnny Paycheck was a very generous man who performed many benefits for those in need and children's causes. Even though he had earned a reputation and dressed in outlaw clothing, he was much more caring and down to earth. With that having been said, then Paycheck's personal life began to spiral. He returned home to Ohio to visit his family. One night he was in a local bar and had a run-in with another patron. An altercation ensued and ended when Paycheck shot the man, grazing his head. Johnny claimed it was self-defense. He was given a 9-year prison sentence. While appealing the charges for aggravated assault, Johnny Paycheck began recording with Mercury Records. He had a top 20 hit with "Oh Violin" in 1986. He became a born-again Christian and continued to appeal his charges, but was finally sent to Chillicothe Correctional Institute in 1989. There he spent the next 2 years. During this time, he performed a prison concert with Merle Haggard before his release in January of 1991. The concert was recorded, but to date, it has never been released. After his release from prison, he said, "I heard from fans constantly throughout the entire 2 years. The letters never stopped from throughout the world. I looked forward to mail call every day." This time, when he came out of prison, he was clean. He honored all of his parole demands, even talking with young people around the country on the dangers of drugs, as was part of his required community service. Johnny made a commitment to stay clean and sober and even return to the stage to resurrect his career once more. He began performing in Branson and began recording for Playback Records. In 1996, the Country Music Foundation re-released some of Paycheck's earlier recordings from Little Darlin' that were favored by younger audiences who found a love for traditional country music. In 1997, Johnny Paycheck was asked to be a member of the Grand Ole Opry. Then, in 1999, he recorded a new album, Live at Gilley's, which was released on Atlantic Records. Johnny remained sober for more than a decade and continued to perform, but his health began to fail. He suffered from asthma and emphysema, requiring several trips to the hospital. Paycheck had finally began to gain credibility in his life, but his health would not let him regain the popularity he once had. Paycheck had signed a record deal with Sony Music Nashville's Lucky Dog Records in late 1997. However, due to his declining health, recording was put on hold. His final recording was on Daryl Singletary's record, That's Why I Sing This Way, when he paired up with Singletary to record "Oh Violin" one more time. Although Paycheck was ill, he made this final recording from his bedside. Paycheck's recitation in the song is now a haunting reminder of the talent of the once great entertainer. Just a few weeks later, on February 18, 2003, Johnny Paycheck died in his sleep at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. He was just 64 years old. Johnny Paycheck was survived by his wife of more than 30 years, Sharon, and their son, Jonathan. Over 200 people attended his memorial service, including George Jones, Little Jimmy Dickens, and several members of Hell's Angels who were fans. A Nashville Skyline columnist wrote, "By and large, it was the roughest-looking funeral crowd I've ever seen." He was buried at the Woodlawn Memorial Park in Nashville. He's buried in the family plot owned by George Jones. It has been reported that Jones paid for the funeral. Though Johnny Paycheck's life had its ups and downs, and he wasn't on this earth for many years, his music speaks for itself. Known for heartbreaking songs and his outlaw persona, his talent lives on. Johnny Paycheck's life was never clean or easy, but it was honest. He gave country music a voice for the working man, the outlaw, and the broken, and he never pretended to be anything he wasn't. Through the highs of chart-topping success and the lows of prison and personal struggle, Paycheck sang with a raw truth that still cuts deep today. Long after the controversies faded, the music remained, proof that even the most troubled lives can leave behind something real, powerful, and lasting. Thanks for watching Classic Country Backstories. Please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. That helps our channel to grow. Until next time, take care, God bless, and I'll see you later.